Hearing none, we'll go into recognitions and announcements. Dr. McGee.
So, Mr. Chairman, a couple of,
Nope,
no?
he's there for the mic.
Just there for the mic, okay.
Good job, Adam.
All right. It works, yes. Couple of things before I start my official recognitions and announcements. I first want to recognize the incredible students from Woonsocket High School, our ninth graders, who demonstrated that the work that they do with Mrs. Dorado and really across the school, but specifically with Mrs. Dorado this evening, the amount of rigor, problem solving, and critical thinking skills are so important. And you're just getting up in front of the public to make a presentation like you did was amazing. And I want to congratulate you for all the hard work that you do and all that you're learning, because clearly you learned a lot with respect to this project. So great job. Keep it up. We're very, very proud of you. And give you another applause. And secondly, I just want to remark on the remarks that Catherine just made. I had the pleasure of attending the musical It's About Damn Time at Woonsocket High School last week. And I want to thank Mrs. Maiello for not just putting on this particular amazing show, but for the work that she's been doing in the theater arts program at Woonsocket High School for decades. It was a testament to see the number of Woonsocket High School alum who came out, and current teachers and administrators who performed. But it's a testament to her hard work and dedication, and it shows the relationship that she's built with her students spanning multiple decades at Woonsocket High School, for them to come back to Woonsocket High School. Some of them who live out of state come back, not just perform for one night, but to practice for, I think it was about a week. I was there, and I know that Mr. Burke was there, Mrs. Kapiskas was there, and Mr. LeClaire, you were also there. It was amazing, and it was sold out. There was not a seat to be found. It was just amazing. But that's a testament to that program at Woonsocket High School, and it's a testament to this community. So I want to thank, she's not here this evening, but I want to thank her and all of the alum and the students. And don't forget, this year in May, Hairspray will be performed by the current Woonsocket High School Theater Arts Department. So keep a lookout for that. You will not be disappointed. Next, I want to announce on October 21st, Megan Warnick, who is a Pothier Citizens Elementary special educator, took part in the Rhode Island Teachers at Sea program with 11 other Rhode Island educators. These educators set sail for 3 days aboard the University of Rhode Island's research vessel, the Endeavor. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Megan was provided hands-on experience about oceanographic research at sea. In turn, she has and will continue to bring this experience back to citizens to share ocean science topics with her students through lessons, conversations, and guidance. So congratulations, Megan, on being only one of a handful of educators in Rhode Island who literally went to the bottom of the ocean. Very impressive. And I actually have some samples that Mrs. Carvalho, principal of Pothier Citizens, shared with me. This is some mud from the depth of 1.2 miles below the ocean surface. And then this is actually, you can't really see it too well out there, but this is a styrofoam cup that once upon a time was a normal size, but because of the ocean pressure at the depth, actually shrunk to this size. And what's written on this wasn't shrunk. You can actually read it as if it were the normal size. So I know I shared it with some of the school committee members on this side. I'm going to send it down here for the rest of you to look at. But again, congratulations to Mrs. Warnick. Next, I want to recognize a truly amazing group of student athletes from Woonsocket High School. It is my pleasure to announce that the Woonsocket High School Unified Volleyball team won the Unified State Championship recently by defeating Tollgate High School. And we have invited all of our Unified Volleyball student athletes here this evening along with their coaches. So I'm going to make a presentation. We have some certificates for each of the members of the unified team. I'm going to come on the other side of the podium here, and if the committee would follow me when I announce your name, if you would please come up to the stage. We would all like to recognize you and congratulate you, and I'm going to hand you an amazing certificate. So, without further ado. We're going to start with Janiyah Alexis. Yep, no? Janiyah's not here this evening. We'll make sure she gets this. Caleb Andre.
Congratulations, great job.
Next, we have Ethan Barry.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
They want to shake your hand. That's
Congratulations.
okay. They want to shake your hand also.
Congratulations, good job, man.
It's a long line. Next, Joe Barry.
Congratulations.
Joe, great job, great job.
Ivan Cabrera.
Ivan, congratulations, buddy, good job.
Kenji Cortez Pumarejo. Not here. Madison Gerard.
Congratulations, wonderful.
Natalie Gonzalez. Natalie Gonzalez, I'm sorry. Omar Jawo.
Well done, buddy.
Ryan Kell.
Ryan, well done, congratulations. Good job.
Sophia McNeil. Not tonight?
Not here.
Not here, okay. Corrales Ortiz Rodriguez.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great job, congratulations.
Jada Famachan. Gianna Raymond. Amberly Ripley. Sayana Shaver. They're practicing. Olivia Smith.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Olivia. Well done.
Simon White.
Congratulations.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Simon, well done. You a two-sport athlete?
Yes.
To have a championship caliber team like we have here this evening, it takes some pretty impressive and hardworking coaches. And we are so fortunate at Woonsocket High School to have some amazing coaches throughout all of our sports, especially here in our unified athletic program. So I want to start by recognizing and presenting to Mr. Steve Rabideau, head coach.
Congratulations, coach. Well done.
Volunteer assistant coach Michael Plass. Volunteer assistant coach Benny Grayson.
Congratulations, coach. Well done.
Volunteer assistant coach Greg Tracy.
Great job.
Congratulations, coach. Well done.
And volunteer assistant coach Samantha Darling Plass.
I know, me too.
Samantha.
Okay, thank you.
Are we all set?
So again, congratulations to all of our unified volleyball student athletes and to their coaches and assistant coaches. Great job. We're so proud of you.
This
That-
time,
Oh,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go, go.
No, I was going to say that concludes my announcements and recognitions.
Thank you, Dr. McGee. I'll make a motion to receive and place on file the recognitions and announcements. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next, we'll go into the approval minutes. I'll make a motion to approve the October 26th, 2022 open meeting minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Burke. Are there any changes, corrections to the minutes?
Oh, good.
Dr. McGee?
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke,
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa,
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Next, I'll make a motion to approve the November 2nd, 2022 special open meeting minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa and Mr. Leclerc. Any changes to those minutes? Dr. McGee?
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke,
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus,
Yes.
Mrs. Costa,
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Next, I'll make a motion to discuss and approve the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. Does any committee member want to take any item out of order and have a separate discussion on the consent agenda? Dr. McGee?
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke,
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus,
Yes.
Mrs. Costa,
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Next, communications, we have some presentations. Dr. McGee, I'll turn
Yes.
it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the school committee. As you are aware, last school committee meeting, we started presentations from our principals throughout the district around their attendance and anti-bullying activities and plans that they have either been working on or will be working on throughout the course of the school year. This evening, we have two schools. We have Pothier Citizens Elementary, and we have, actually, we have three schools. We have Coleman Elementary, and we have Villanova Middle School. So I think we're going to start with Pothier Citizens. Kathy Carvalho, Principal Carvalho, is here this evening with Assistant Principal. So do you have a presentation, Kathy, or?
We brought a two-pager that we can pass out later.
Okay, great.
So, good evening. I'm going to speak about what we've been doing at Pothier Citizens in regards to our attendance. Obviously, it's a struggle, given the fact that during COVID, we had a lot of students home, but I have to say, we seem to be going in an upward trajectory. Our current data is based on the fact that we decided in early September to start sending letters home, tiered letters. So after the first time we notice it's becoming a pattern, we send a gentle reminder. And then the tier 2 letter pretty much lays out like you've been out this many days and it's important to be in school. And then the third letter offers them a chance if they would like to meet with us so we can help them and get the students into school. So we have some data that I feel very hopeful about. In K, based on the letters sent home, we've had a 54% improvement in attendance. In first grade, a 47% improvement. Second grade, we're struggling with. We've only had a 4%. Third grade, 55%. Fourth grade, another tough grade level, only 3%. But fifth grade, we've had a 75% improvement. Our fifth grade is coming to school every day, which is phenomenal given the state of our fifth grade and the fluctuation in our teaching staff. Right now, what we've been doing is contacting the teachers, contact after 2 days absent. After that, they send lists to the social workers, and they call to find out what's going on, what can we help them with to get their child in school. We send out the tiered letters. We share different letters and hints from attendance works with the families. We started in October a new reward system, but it's based on behavior. So if I walk down the hall and I give the students a compliment on their line, they spelled out the letters SOAR, and each one stands for a different behavior. So it is safe, on task, act responsibly, and respectful. And if they get a compliment, they put a little dot on the S. So that's been working also. If they have perfect attendance, they get to add a dot. We've had our first school finish their SOAR today. So now they get to pick a reward for filling out all the dots on all 4 letters. And the letters are big letters, so they have to work really hard. And then we have positive behavior referrals where if they're doing a good job with attendance, they either get perfect attendance awards or they get a shout out during our town halls, which are at grade level. Next trimester, we're going to be doing, switching it up, making it a little more enticing, I think, to come to school with attendance celebrations every month. We're going to have Gold Star students that have perfect attendance and excellent attendance, which is 100% with excused absences. Then we tiered it down to very good, which is 95% or better, and then good attendance, 90 to 94. We're going to give them certificates, and we're also going to send home postcards to parents thanking them, because basically in elementary school, it's their charge to get their students to school. We're going to start a wall of fame with gold, silver, and bronze stars, and the Gold Star students get to enjoy a monthly luncheon with myself and Mrs. McKenzie. And we've started doing like a coffee, not a coffee hour, but at drop-off. One day at Citizens, one day at Pothia, we have coffee and donuts and hand out information about attendance and give parents the opportunity to ask any questions as they're dropping off their students. So it's been going well. I think the letters are making a difference, and I think a little bit kind of showing off those students that are doing well might entice other students to want to come to school and get out of bed in the morning and get to school on time. So that's what we've been doing as far as attendance. We can always do better, but that's what we work hard for every day. And now Mrs. McKenzie will talk about what we've been doing for the anti-bullying month.
Sure. So as we know, October was Bully Prevention Month, and we had many activities on campus. We had Unity Day, in which all the kiddos and the teachers wore orange, and we discussed kindness within the classrooms. We had Al Ullman come from Hawaii. He put on the Roar Show. He had 2 performances. He had K through 2 and then 3 through 5 in our Citizens Cafeteria. He also provided us with some preview activities and follow-up activities that we are doing in the classroom. We also have our all-in motto that we've been following throughout the school, where we're all working together to achieve a common goal. Part of our SOAR responsibilities for the kids is to act responsibly and kind to one another. In both buildings, we created a unity tree, and each child created an orange leaf for Unity Day, where they shared ways that they can help a friend that might be in trouble. We had, which also Al Ullman talked about, was Spookily the Square Pumpkin. It's a children's book that the kids read, and then they discussed how you can be the end of bullying. We distributed bully prevention signs throughout campus that was sent down to us throughout the district, so the kids are able to access those and see them. Our special education social worker is conducting small group counseling sessions on how to be a good friend and what to do if you are being bullied. And last but not least, we've been having many conversations with the kiddos of what bullying is versus peer conflict, because many kids have the misconception of a peer conflict is actually a bullying scenario. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Kathy and Jamie. Great job. Mr. Zagrodny, would you like to go next? Mr. Zagrodny, our interim principal at Coleman Elementary School, is going to share with us some of what the Coleman Elementary students are doing around anti-bullying and what the school is doing to improve attendance. Dick?
Good evening, Dr. McGee, school committee, directors, fellow administrators, and public. If I did have a PowerPoint presentation, but I guess we're not going to show it tonight. As you enter Coleman, we have a bulletin board.
We can. It's on the computer, right? Oh, it's not.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, as you enter Coleman, we have a bulletin board that has roaring cubs, and Coleman Cubs is our mascot. We show respect. We take ownership of our actions, we give acceptance to everyone, and we show readiness to learn. We also had Al, the respect guy, in October. He did 2 shows just as they did at Pothia and Citizens. And we have our posters throughout the building, our raw posters. Our anti-bullying posters, we posted in both stairways leading up to the second floor. So every time students go up on either side of the building, they're constantly seeing the anti-bullying posters. We have a kindness cove as you enter the building, and we display certain themes every day, such as dreaming big, thinking positive, being kind, doing your best, shine like the stars and be creative. Some of our incentives for behavior and attendance, I lumped them both together. I want to give credit to Miss Cacknish. She did an outstanding job when I took over there. She had bracelets made that show star student, student of the month, caught being good. Teachers write up every day cards and they nominate kids. And at lunchtime, when I go do lunch duty, I give out these awards to students. They really enjoy them quite a bit. I also asked Roger Pickard to do citations from the Senate. And if they have perfect attendance or they are student of the month, they receive a certificate from the state Senate. And students and parents really like that. On Friday afternoons, we have each class nominate 2 students that were outstanding for the week. And there's a bell outside the office. We call them down around 2:45, and the students can ring the bell. And they really get a charge out of doing that. Our attendance office, not our attendance office, but our social workers, our behavioral interventionists are constantly going into classrooms, talking to whole groups about social emotional issues, to smaller groups that are having problems, and to individuals. So they are constantly working throughout the day with social emotional issues. And it really has shown a big improvement. Coleman is one of the few schools you can walk down. I was telling Dr. McGee, you can walk down the hall and a student will go and open the door for you. I don't see that throughout the district. It's amazing. Ms. Cackniss really did a great training job with these students. That's what I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zagrodny. Next, we have Mrs. Luca and Ms. Lapointe from Villanova Middle School. Ladies, take it away.
Good evening. We would like to just talk a little, I know you heard a lot about the bullying piece, but you really didn't hear much about some of the stuff that went into the planning of it, and Sarah's going to go over that. But first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the attendance. We have about 643 students, and we found that about 25% of those students have 5 or more absences. If you want to break it down, it's about 150 or 160. Of that number, 6% are 6th graders, 11% are 7th graders, and about 8% are the 8th graders. There's about 2% of the population in the school which actually make up most of the 8th graders, other than 2, which are 7th graders, that have 20 or more absences. Why are students not coming to school? We're making a lot of telephone calls. We have an attendance task force that meets biweekly, and a student support team that takes on not only the behavioral issues or the academic issues, but also what might be affecting both of those things. And we find that attendance is a big point. So we found that many families are really nervous to send their kids to school if they have some sick family members at home, maybe not having the ability to get to a doctor, or not sure yet that they have COVID or that they do have COVID. In some cases, the students themselves are sick, and the parents are keeping them home a little bit longer. Transportation has been, an issue where they may not want students walking to school in some cases. We're finding that once the holidays start to ramp up, kids are literally going out of the country or out of state for vacation, and parents are taking their children out of school. We're also finding that there are a lot of mental health issues, and some of our kids are hospitalized and seeking some medical assistance, and they're struggling to come to school. And in some cases, we have some family members that have some serious illnesses, and they're keeping their kids home to take care of, little brothers or sisters. So what have we done so far? Since August, we made an attendance work plan, and I've been sending out in the parent newsletters the importance of attendance and the research behind it and the success and how it leads to academic success. So we put that in every single week, along with some statistics. At open house, we talked to the parents about how important attendance was at the very beginning of the year. We've had assemblies for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, talking to them about how it leads to academic success and overall, social success. And it's just, like a rainbow of success if you're coming to school every day. You get to experience all the wonderful things middle school can bring to you. We share attendance work flyers to parents, backpacking them home. We like to recognize the students and make a huge deal of students that have had perfect attendance and kids that have improved, to show the kids that it really is important, and we do recognize you in this school. We keep a spreadsheet for each team. We have 7 teams in our school, and we keep a spreadsheet of students that are on the cusp of that 5 days and 5 days and over. And the teachers go into that spreadsheet. They make telephone calls each week. They comment on maybe the reasons why the parent mentioned that the student is not coming to the building. So as the attendance task force meets, we bring up that spreadsheet to see if there's been an improvement with those particular students or if we need to take it to a tier 2. Let's see. We've sent home letters to families for those kids that are chronic or excessive or even on the fence, to try to catch the parents and to say, you're on that cusp right now, and we need to ensure that you recognize the student may be dropping in their grades, or are they actually, do you think that they're coming to school and they're not coming to school? So we're alerting the parents in various ways. We reached out to the truancy officer when absences continue, and we set up parent meetings. We created a student mentoring committee to look at students that are struggling academically, behaviorally, attendance issues, and we're having teachers mentor those students and keep an eye on them and keep a check on them. And at parent-teacher conferences, we ensure that all the teachers mention to the parents that attendance is incredibly important. What will we do? We're going to continue to celebrate the students with the certificates and have end-of-semester breakfasts with families. The teams will continue to meet weekly and communicate with families. We will continue the parent meetings, invite the families in to talk about the importance of attendance if their child is having an issue. Our I Explore teachers are having a lot of fun with public service announcements and podcasts. So it would be really fun to make PSAs for the TVs in the school and maybe send them out to parents about how important attendance is, and it'll be student driven. We want to work on the climate and culture in the building because a lot of students refrain from coming to school because they could be scared. Could be a bullying incident. So we want to capture every possible thing that could be preventing a student from coming to school. And what we're trying to also do too is during self-directed learning, we're having the teachers fill out with the kids the different goals, academic success, the social goals, and their attendance goals, and the teachers can check in with them weekly to ensure that the kids are meeting their goals and coming to school. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah will talk about bullying.
Hi, Sarah LaPointe, assistant principal over at Villanova. As you know, we were here probably about a month ago or so about the Autumn Fest Parade, how our school participated in that. So the build up to that was we started the year off with our I Am campaign. And so I am kind, I am helpful, I am whatever you feel that you are. So we had our activities in the first couple weeks of school. We did that during SDL, the self-directed learning in the SEL classes. Then we had our big kickoff rally, our assembly, right prior to the Autumn Fest parade, where Mr. Vieira talked about the basics of, what is bullying, which is what they had talked about in their classes prior to that assembly. They watched videos. They even filled out a Google form, like reflecting on what they had learned. We had the assembly. Then we had the Autumn Fest parade. After the Autumn Fest parade, we went through taking unity pledges. So all the students were able to fill out a Google form. We shared that out. We watched a video on Unity Day, so students really understood, why are we wearing orange? We have this orange, but what does it really mean? And then we had a Spirit Week the following week, which we had fun little names, Hats Off to Kindness, so Hats Day, and then we had a Peace Out Bullying Day. So little things like that for that particular week. On Unity Day, besides the orange, we had team assemblies. So Mr. Veer and I did 6 assemblies, which was a little exhausting, but we felt it was better to have that small environment. The following week, we continued with our lessons. We had videos. We're sending out slide decks. This is every week because we don't want the kids to forget what we're doing, right? Because October is great. It's the anti-bullying month, but then what, right? So we're sending things out throughout the year. Flip the page. And then we're also going to focus, as always, on our climate and culture. Like Ms. Luca said, we know there's room for improvement. So we want to make sure we're focusing on the kids having positive experiences. So not only talking about bullying every week with these activities and these Google Forms and making posters, but also really embedding it in the building. So continuing to recognizing students daily. We've tried to turn the word office referral, which can sound negative, to having these positive referrals, where kids, I make personalized emails or phone calls, the students get a certificate. It's a really nice way to recognize the kids. Like Ms. Luca said about the attendance, using student council to help us with initiatives throughout the building. We have our food drive starting up. We have our good deeds tree that we're starting, which all relates to having a positive climate and culture. So we're really working hard this year to kind of lift things off the ground with that focus on bullying prevention.
Perfect.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies. I just want to say a couple of things. I am really proud of the work that our administrators and our teachers and our support staff and all of the adults in this district at all of our schools are doing to work with our children around them being successful, getting to school every day, getting to school on time, and being kind to one another, and establishing environments that are inclusive of everyone and are respectful of everyone. And I think this is, we're going to have some more presentations in December. I think we're probably going to finish up in December.
Probably.
And you're going to, again, see what those buildings and those administrators and teachers are doing. But I am really proud of how hard everyone works here in this district to support our students and to support our families. And these are just some wonderful examples of how hard people are working. And I want to congratulate them. And I want to congratulate our kids, because without our kids, we wouldn't be able to do this stuff. And we have the best students around. They come to school, they want to do well, they're kind to their peers, they're kind to the adults, and I'm so proud of the work that they do with our adults to make this a great community and a great school department. So thank you to them as well. Next, we have a presentation by Thunder Mist Health, and just to sort of frame this presentation before our presenters come to the mic and begin their presentation. We're very fortunate here in Woonsocket that we, for many years, have partnered with Thunder Mist Health here in the city to establish school-based health clinics. We have a school-based health clinic, also known as the Health Hut, at Woonsocket High School. And that Health Hut has been around for decades, for as long as I can remember. We used to have a Health Hut at the old middle school. In fact, when I was principal there, and it was very successful, unfortunately, the funding ran out. And just about the time we moved from the old school to the new buildings, that program unfortunately ended, and we didn't have the ability to provide the supports to our middle school students and families like we do at the high school. So for years, we've been trying, and Thunder Mist has been trying to, seek funding so that we could reopen that Health Hut, that community school-based health clinic here in Woonsocket. And we were very fortunate, Thunder Mist was very fortunate to receive a federal grant. And this evening we have two folks. We have Matt Roman, who's the Chief of Behavioral Health and Innovation from Thunder Mist, and we have Mulaney Fitzpatrick, who is the nurse practitioner from Thunder Mist. And they're going to show the committee through a presentation what they've gone through and we've gone through with them in partnering so that we can bring back, and we have brought back, a health hut here at the middle school. It's actually located next door at Villanova, but it serves our families and our students from both middle schools. So we're going to go down to the audience, and I know that you, Matt, you have a presentation, a PowerPoint that you're going to share with us. So actually, I want to introduce first Matt Roman. Matt.
Great. Well, thank you for having us, to the school committee for having us. I'd like to, before I jump into the presentation, just thank Dr. McGee and Al, the administration, particularly Principal Luca, who welcomed us into the school as if she was welcoming us into her house. It was really appreciated. We could not ask for better partners in Dr. McGee, Al, the school nurse teachers, the social workers. I have to say, when we were in the thick of the pandemic and we needed some physical plant changes in the high school to be able to safely serve the kids there, Al did pretty much the impossible, sort of revamp the whole health center. I mean, construction, as you guys know, is not very easy to do right now anywhere, and pretty much did the impossible. So we could not thank our partners at the school. You really are the best partners in the state. So thank you very much for that. I'll jump into the presentation. I don't know where the screen goes. Where's the screen? Oh. Where is it? Oh, okay. Okay.
We're going down.
Just dropping the thing. Oh, there it is. Great. So as Dr. McGee mentioned, we currently operate 2 school-based health centers in Woonsocket. The health center that, as Dr. McGee said, has been there for decades in the high school, and the new health center that just opened in September in Villanova Middle School. So what does a school-based health center do? It basically brings in full healthcare right into the school. So we offer primary medical care offered by Mulaney and another family nurse practitioner who comes in. Behavioral health care, we have a full-time behavioral health counselor that is providing care in the school. We will soon be offering psychiatric services right in the school. We offer dental services through our mobile dental services in the school, and health education in conjunction with the school nurse teachers in the school. And so although I was speaking with Principal Luca before, we actually didn't coordinate, but you could hear from Principal Luca how students are not going to show up to school if they're not healthy or their family are not healthy. So having access to healthcare right in the school is really a tremendous resource, and we're very happy to be here. So what are the benefits of having healthcare right in the school? Parents don't need to get the students to healthcare at the doctor's office or a walk-in clinic. The healthcare is right here for them. They just have to walk down the hall and access it in the school. There's no time out of work. You know, parents don't all have flexibility to take their kids out of school and get them to a counseling appointment, a primary care appointment, a sick visit. Again, they don't have to do that. Once they consent to care, the child can just access care right at the embedded health center. The students themselves have less, time out of care. They might have to come out of the classroom to get the care, but they're not leaving the building. They're not driving somewhere, coming back. It's just easier for the students. And we also have the opportunity to do physicals and provide immunizations if those are missing and required for school attendance. We can do that, all of that at the health center. The other thing is there is no out-of-pocket cost. If the child has a copay, they're not charged that. If they have no health insurance, they are charged nothing. All care is supported through health insurance, but is also subsidized by the federal grant that we got from HRSA to open the new school-based health center. So what does the child need or the parent need to do to be able to access care? It's simply signing a consent. We have modified our consent at this point that once a parent consents for their child to get care at the school-based health center in the middle school, it will run through their whole Woonsocket school career. And so when they go to the high school, they will also be able to access care at the high school. So that's only one consent, and it's good for their whole time while they're in Woonsocket schools. And that is it, short and brief, but we will be happy to take any questions about the program. Yeah.
Explain the coordination between your group and members of the district and there, like school nurses and social workers,
Yes.
because you don't duplicate.
No, we do not
So,
duplicate.
How you work together?
Yes. So we have wonderful relationships with both the school nurse teachers and the school social workers. Even when we came in, we met with Principal Luca and her whole staff, talked about how the referrals were going to work, how everything was going to work together. So usually the student starts at the school nurse teacher, who identifies they need medical care beyond the scope of the school nurse teacher. And at that point, they would see if there's a consent on file, or if the parent would like them to get the care at the school, at the health hut. And then the parent can originally consent for like a verbal consent for a one-time visit. And then we ask that we get consent for ongoing care. So really the starting point is the district staff who identify that they may need care. So, or in the case of behavioral health, they may identify a child that really could benefit with counseling. The social worker is going to generally talk to the parent and say, did you know that there's counseling right here in the school? Behavioral health counseling for children and adolescents is near impossible to get in the state right now. There's really a crisis. And so to have all of that right in the school is such a benefit. And it really starts with your staff as the people who identify who needs the care there.
Great to hear that.
Yeah. It's the only way it works. There's been examples in the news where it sort of wasn't sort of as collaborative in other districts, but the district is so receptive to what we deliver here, and such amazing partners. I can't emphasize that enough. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you for having us. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you all set, Dr. McGee,
I
on
believe
communications?
that, yeah, I just want to thank them one more time before
Sure.
I get to my report. Yeah, again, I want to thank Matt and everyone from Thunder Mist Health. You know, as Matt said, we're very lucky to have such a strong partnership, and it's been like that for many, many years. And you know, when we lost the health hut at the old middle school, I had some conversations over the years with folks from Thunder Mist and with Matt, you know, a few years ago, and we said, you know, if there's any way we can get it back, we're going to definitely try to make it happen. And Thunder Mist worked extremely hard to get this grant, and it's really going to benefit more families, more students here in Woonsocket, and we're just really lucky, very lucky to have the partnership that we do with Thunder Mist. So thank you very, very much.
I'll make a motion to receive and place on file all presentations. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Leclerc. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Dr. McGee, your superintendent's report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to start with personnel. We have, as you see in your on your agenda. Let me pull it up here. Where is it? There it is. We have added a couple of full-time employees, a pre-kindergarten resource teacher, and a school nurse teacher floater here in the district, as well as some non-certified positions. And then we continue to add hourly stipend and extracurricular positions, mainly for student support, you know, during the day, before or after school. We do have some separations here, and I know that the committee has asked, has inquired about, you know, why are we getting staff who are leaving the district, you know, after the start of the school year. And what we find is many of them, in terms of them interacting with exit interviews with the HR department, is that many people are leaving to take positions that are closer to home. That's been the vast majority of the ones that we've had. So it's frustrating, you know, especially in this time when it's difficult to hire people. It's very frustrating when you hire them and then they leave because, you know, they may have found a position that's closer to home. I guess I can understand it, but to me, when you make a commitment, you follow through on the commitment. But that's what we're seeing, unfortunately. Next agenda item is Stop School Violence Grant. So Chief Oates from the Woonsocket Police Department has been in the process of trying to establish or procure a grant that would be a $36,000 grant from the police, and it's a matching grant. So they would be looking to the district to match $12,100, which would make it a $48,400 grant, which would be to improve security at schools and on school grounds through school safety programs and technology. This is something that we discussed. It was on our agenda this afternoon with the Safety and Facilities Subcommittee. So we're hopeful that the Woonsocket Police will be able to get this grant, and we will certainly be able to match the $12,000 funds. And what we would be looking to do is really across the district, just look at our facilities and do, you know, look at their the safety when it comes to the campus itself, and a variety of things, including doors and locks and things like that. I would be looking specifically to Woonsocket High School, and I've got some ideas that we talked about this afternoon around monitoring and having alarming doors, exterior doors at Woonsocket High School. So that's something that we're hopeful that if we get this grant, we can use a portion of these funds in that area. The next item I have under my report
Enrollment figures.
is the district enrollment figures. So what I know at the last committee meeting or the meeting prior to that one, there was a question around the enrollment last year versus this year. So I can tell you that last year, 2021, our October 1st snapshot, we had 5,515 students. This year, we have 5,525. So if you're comparing last year to this year at this time, as of October 1st, we have 10 more students than we did last year. We are in the process of getting the numbers, the enrollment numbers for November right now. We haven't been able to access that through RIDE. That's how we get these numbers. This is not something that we produce ourselves. This is something that RIDE, that we submit the numbers to RIDE through our Skyward, and RIDE then produces these for all districts. So comparing last year to this year, at this time, we're actually up 10 students. Lastly, state assessment update. As everyone is aware, the RICAS scores, the DLM, the access scores for our English language learners have all been released, SAT and PSAT included. We're in the process, the district's in the process of taking that data, and at the next school committee meeting, the meeting on December 21st, Dr. Holt and I and Mrs. DeRiso will be presenting to the committee the results of all of that data, not just the RICAS, but the DLM, the Access, SAT, and PSAT. And what we're going to do is we'll break it down by the different subcategories that we have here in the district. So we'll be presenting that to the committee. Right now, we have the data, but we want to be able to go through it and analyze it and put it in a presentation so that we're not just giving you aggregated data, but disaggregated data in addition. So we'll be working hard on that so that we'll have that information for the committee at the next meeting, and the only meeting in December. With that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for my report. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions any committee members may have.
Vice Chair Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. McGee, last year, when the RICAS numbers came out, obviously the principals and the directors, they did a good job. I remember going back and looking at the scores and where there were weaknesses, where there were strengths, and tweaking some of the curriculum to address those. Are those still in our plans for this year?
Yes, so the principals have their data, and they're going to be analyzing their data, much like we're going to be analyzing the district-wide data. And what we're going to do, both on a building level and district-wide level, is we're going to look at what areas, what gaps do we need to fill. And we're also going to look at our ESSER 3 funds, because while we've spent some of those funds, we haven't spent everything. So we're going to look at, so there may be some changes in ESSER 3 around the results from our RICAS scores and SAT and PSAT and so on and so forth scores. So yes, and the buildings will be looking at that as well. One of the things that I can tell you we're going to try to increase, and I just had a meeting today with CCF and some other community-based organizations, is they're looking to get a grant to work with us, to partner with the school department around improving student academic success. And one of the things that we've talked about is tutoring, high dosage tutoring. So continuing and adding more high dosage tutoring, not just with the district, but these other community organizations providing the high dosage tutoring for our students, whether it's before school or after school, providing transportation for them as well. So those are the types of things, Mr. Burke, that we're looking at now, and we're going to continue to plan as we move forward.
Very good, thank you.
I know there are some folks out there that addressed and talked to me about scores and saying, well, how can you compare yourselves to maybe rural districts or a mayoral academy or charter schools, because they don't have the same issues and problems that or challenges that we face here in our district. And so that's why your scores are so low. Are you going to be able to, or planning to break out some of the groups within those scores to say, if we're going to compare charter school that has very little of the issues we have, can we pull out some of that data to where are we? Because if you're trying to figure out where the challenges are, well, what about the students who do very, very well? We've got a lot of students that do well. I mean, we go to the high school every year and we see the honor students, and we see a lot of students that do well. I don't know how you're going to do that, but it seems to me that it'd be nice to compare apples to apples at some point.
So we'll do that through the disaggregated data.
Okay,
So
fine.
we'll have the district-wide data, and then we'll disaggregate it as well. I can say, I will say that statewide, the math scores did go up, and our math scores went up about 10 percentage points. We had some elementary schools that actually showed more growth pre-pandemic, which is pretty impressive. So, you know, we had of course, there was the 2019, which is considered the pre-pandemic, which would have been the last year before the pandemic, where we had, you know, the RICAS and the other assessments that were given to our students. Then there was no testing, and then there was last year, the year before last, and last year, because we're looking at last year's scores naturally. I can tell you, you know, across the board at the elementary levels, and even I believe at the middle school levels, we surpassed last year's. And as I said, there were even some that surpassed that pre-COVID year as well. So, and that's math. ELA, it was really statistically kind of insignificant. Their statewide went down by about 1% or 2%, and we saw the same thing here in Woonsocket as a whole. So we sort of followed the trend of the state here in Woonsocket. But again, we'll break all of that down when we make that presentation to the committee in December.
Very good.
Sounds good.
Any other questions, comments for Dr. McGee? I'll make a motion to receive and place on file the superintendent's report. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next, we'll go into the subcommittee reports, and we'll begin with our CLAC update. We'll ask Mrs. Kapiskas to give us that.
Thank you. I knocked my sign down, I'm sorry. Gotta find my notes. Okay, I got it.
Oh, I thought it was the whole 4
I
inches.
thought it was too. I said, oh, here she goes with her book.
No,
Okay.
no.
The policy subcommittee right there.
That's, this big clip is policy. CLEC meeting was held on November 3rd, 2022, started at 6 p.m. under old business. We discussed the revised proposed secondary regulations regarding graduation. In short, with regard to special ed, nothing much has changed. The complaints that we raised did not appear to be addressed. The requirements regarding math, sciences, world languages for the special education community, among others, we had expressed concern. They remain in the revised regulations. Language about an LEA making adjustments for students with IEPs based upon manifestation of disability, which all agree is the wrong term, because that's a term that involves matters of discipline. That language is now gone, but there doesn't appear to be anything replacing it with some other language, other than some other language about multiple pathways. So there's been really no, in terms of special education, there's been really no move forward as to how we're going to make sure our students are going to be able to graduate as well. There still does not appear to be an allowance for LEAs to develop their own graduation requirements to permit students who cannot complete these RIDE requirements to get some sort of diploma, which is pretty much what we were doing with the students who were in special education and couldn't meet requirements. There were some waivers in place, and there doesn't seem to be any allowance for that in the revised regulations. The FAFSA requirement appears to be gone But while I expected to see that language redlined, it's just simply gone. It's just not there anymore. So I don't know what that means. And I also presented on CLAC leadership. We're still looking for an interested parent to take over leadership of the CLAC. Assistance from current leadership will be provided to any interested parties. Under presentations, Mrs. Carvalho from the WED's SEL District Work Group presented to the CLAC on the work of the group for feedback. This group has been in place for over a year and includes parents, community partners, teachers, WHS students, and administration, along with DG Develop from Project Aware. The group uses the CASTLE rubric, which many of us are familiar with in terms of SEL curriculum, social emotional learning. This year, the work is focused on 2 short-term goals, a relationship group and an SEL skills group. The SEL skills group is focused on how to deal with stress, interfering with student ability to perform, again, using survey works data. This group is also working on issues around students feeling they're being bothered or talked about at school. The feedback sought was mainly on the relationship group and the SMARTY goal around this area. SMARTY goal being their term. A look at survey works informs the group that many students do not feel connected with any adults in their schools, especially concerning at the elementary school level. The group is looking to find or develop a mapping tool around the question of students feeling that they have at least one adult that they can go to at school, even if they do not realize who that person is or that that person serves as their person at school. Long-term goal will be to develop curriculum based on this to make sure that adults are also reaching out to kids. The program was piloted last year at Pothia Citizens. The intent is to roll it out to all the elementary schools in the 23-24 school year. Under new business, information was provided about the RIPIN transition night, which took place last Thursday, November 10th, for students who are 14 and older, and particularly those getting ready to age out of school into adult services. RIPIN holds this transition night every year. This year it was held at Warwick Mall at the center of the mall, where important information was available for planning purposes. And comments from the superintendent included Dr. McGee informing us that the district is working with new architects on our strategic plan and the creation of a stage 2 part of the application to ride for school construction and rehabilitation work, which is due to ride on February 15th, 2023. The focus is currently on needs at the elementary level, but the middle school will likely be affected as well. We talked about SATs and PSAT scores being out, and while there have been slight downward trends, the decrease has been significantly insignificant and matches statewide trends post-COVID. RICAS, ELM, and access scores have been released to the districts, but the information remains embargoed to the public until RIDE directs that the district can release that information. There will be a presentation to the school committee, as there usually is, once the embargo is lifted, and Dr. McGee has advised us it will be at our next meeting. Comments from Ms. Morella and Ms. Gerard from the Special Education Department. Camp Connect, a before and after school group led by SLPs and OTs in district, has commenced at all elementary schools. The purpose is to try to close some of the post-COVID gaps, especially in SLP. The program will run for 6 weeks and will run again in the spring. It ran this previous spring, and the numbers have doubled to 97 students for the fall program. Our unified volleyball team was at that time on its way to its championship game at LaSalle, which we know it has successfully competed at. Special Education Department is working hard on smoothing the transition for all from MTSS to special education if special education is required. Our percentage of students on alternate assessment is trending downward, but is not yet at or below the 1% that the federal government wants. But we are following best practices, and through team effort is now trending below 2%. Leadership is providing professional development to the LEAs based upon guidance from RIDE in order to improve our ability to assess a student's need to be on alternate assessment. Comments from the chair, that's me, school committee liaison. All were advised that the state mandated medical marijuana policy is on the school committee's next agenda for discussion and approval, but moving it forward was not without objection. The chair offered all present a social story prepared by an OTA student as part of her level 2A fieldwork at Globe Park School. There was also a discussion of recent guidance from OSEP, the Office of Special Education Programs at the United States Department of Education, on whether informal removals, that is, taking Johnny home for the day, and we'll work on it tomorrow, is considered disciplinary, especially when it comes to special education students where disciplinary rules are quite strict. And the short answer from OSEP is they are. This information can be shared with anybody who's interested if you send an email to me, but it is quite voluminous. Comments from the members, there were none. The meeting was adjourned at 6:50. The next meeting is on December 1st, 2022 at 6 p.m. virtually. Link is available to anybody who shoots me an email. I will send you that link back. That concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Kepiscus. Any questions or comments for her?
I think we just like her as the chair. I don't think anybody else wants to be the chair of the celiac. I think we just like Miss Lynn.
Here, here.
Your chair is tired.
Then I'll make a motion to receive and place on file the CLAC update. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Burke. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next, I'll ask Mr. Notoriani to give us the building committee update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on Monday, October 24th at 4 PM, the building committee met at Hamlet Middle School. There were several agenda items, or 3 agenda items, actually 2. One was a capital plan update where we outlined some choices and the progress we were making with our new architectural firm, Torado and Associates. We reviewed some planning, an updated schedule, which we're keeping to, which is a twice-a-week meeting that we've held fast through to the month of November. And the second item discussed was the P3 plan update, which there was a brief, very brief update from Mr. Carreño and Mr. Perrier regarding the ongoing planning session to do a joint partnership with through Civic Builders. And that was the 2 discussion points for that meeting. Unless there's any questions.
The building committee will continue along and march along as we continue to process through the process of building new schools and tearing others down. Any questions, comments for Mr. Notoriani? I'll make a motion to receive and place on file the building committee update. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Leclerc. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next, I'll ask Mrs. Kepiscus and Vice Chair Burke to give us the policy subcommittee update.
Would you like me to go, Mr. Burke? Okay.
I think you have something there.
I have some notes prepared.
Oh, I guess.
The policy subcommittee last met on October 27th, 2022, after approving our minutes of our meeting on 9/29/2022. The subcommittee discussed the following policies. Number 1, medical marijuana policy. Per the request of the subcommittees, our attorneys prepared a legal memorandum to our school nurses providing assurances that under the policy, as well as the Slater Act, school nurses bear no liability, civil or criminal, with regard to the administration of medical marijuana pursuant to the statute or the underlying regs. They also were assured that they would face no job actions. Our attorneys also researched the issue of what districts have done with regard to this policy, and it is, as of right now, or as of our meeting, been adopted by only 4 policies at this time, none of which address the issues around students who are over the age of 18, which has been an ongoing philosophical debate at all of our meetings. Our school nurses, represented by Renee DeCenzo, also presented a memo expressing the nurses' concerns, mainly around the risk to their licenses by administering a non-FDA-approved medication, medical marijuana, as well as the advice of our school physician, Dr. Maureen Crotty, that medical marijuana should not be administered to children, period. Our attorneys have removed all the language you developed regarding students over age 18 based on the policies proposed by the regulation, as well as the 4 policies adopted in other districts which do not contain this language. And it was suggested that we move the policy forward to avoid further potential repercussions from RIDE and the Department of Health if we do not adopt the policy as it is required. On my motion and Mr. Burke's second, all but 1 subcommittee member voted to move the policy forward to the full school committee. It is currently on our agenda tonight for first passage. The next policy was, I have the name wrong on my minutes, the out-of-school instruction for temporarily disabled students policy. This policy is intended to update our current policy on this issue in order to bring us into compliance with the requirements of state and federal law providing tutoring in an alternate setting for students who are not able to attend their physical school due to some sort of short-term disability or illness. When asked, legal counsel stated that they did not believe the updated policy as drafted created any more confusion around parental claims of a right to send their students to an alternate virtual academy. The language was amended to make it clear that other alternate settings, such as libraries and community centers, are a preferred site for tutoring, with home as the last option on the advice of medical professionals involved in the child's care. Responsibility for moving a child from the homeschool attendance role and adding them back on and return to school was shifted from the director of curriculum to the child's principal. The new policy requires a written plan in place for such students. If a child has an IEP, that plan is developed by the IEP team. If not, it's developed by the principal and school personnel. On my motion and Mr. Burke's second, no, I'm sorry, Ms. Coderre's second, policy was moved forward to the full school committee and is on our agenda tonight for first passage. Building assignment policy. This policy was requested by administration to address issues around students who move from their home school either as a result of overages or some other school-based purpose or parental request. The issue often revolves around whether a student so moved is permitted to remain in the non-home school for subsequent school years or whether they are returned to their home school for the following school year. Different principals are handling it differently. Language was proposed that if parents request the transfer be made or remain in effect, they would be responsible for transporting their child to the non-home school. Our attorneys raised an issue with this language being in violation of the state transportation laws. Issues around how overages in the non-home school the following year would be addressed. Presently, last one in by registration date is moved out. Principals indicated that parents take issue with this as they often move to a particular area so their child can attend a particular school, and then the child is moved out of that school that should be their home school due to overages. It is suggested that a list of factors be considered and developed and included in the policy before those decisions are made. Based upon the discussion on my motion and Mr. Burke's second, the decision was made to hold this policy for further discussion at the next policy subcommittee meeting. Removal of outdated policies as part of our overall review of the current policy handbook. Another section of outdated supplanted policies should be removed on advice of counsel. On my motion and Mr. Burke's second, the recommended policies will be recommended for removal from our current policy handbook with approval from all in attendance. This removal is sent on to the full school committee and appears on our agenda tonight. Policies to be addressed at a future meeting. A long list of policies to be addressed including many that I didn't even include the list. After discussion, it was agreed that barring advice from counsel, otherwise we will add the first two policies, which are a substance abuse policy and a nepotism policy, to our next policy subcommittee agenda, and that will join the assignment of students to building assignment policy to create our three policies on the next agenda. After much discussion, the next policy subcommittee meeting will be on November 30th at 4 p.m. at Woonsocket High School in Hamlet, room 124. This date is tentative. Oh, at that point it was tentative because we didn't know what the election results were going to be and whether or not there was going to be shifting of subcommittee assignments upon the election of the school committee. On my motion and Mr. Burke's, the meeting was adjourned at 5:35 p.m. That concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kepiscus. Obviously, we have policies that you talked about are listed on our agenda. We'll deal with them as we go along. Any further questions, additional questions or comments for Mrs. Kepiscus? Then I'll make a motion to receive and place on file the policy subcommittee update. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next, I'll ask Mr. Notoriani to cover the facility security and safety update because we had our meeting today and we covered quite a bit of items. There were two major areas: safety and security discussions and the facilities projects throughout the district. So, Mr. Notoriani, would you give us a summary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yes, this afternoon, we had a meeting on the safety and security. As we spoke about, Dr. McGee updated us earlier on, there was the Non-Violence Institute. We talked about ALICE training potential for the near future. We're going to work out some training for our staff in terms of emergency situations. We reviewed the fire inspection reports, safety plan protocol update. We'll be reviewing with our building principals. We announced about the Stop the School Violence Grant, and we also briefly discussed high school security and the safety assessment that'll be coming in the very near future. Under facilities projects, we talked about the district-wide HVAC boiler repairs that are an ongoing concern here in the district, making sure that we have heat in all of our buildings during the winter months. We talked about the Barryfield visitor bleachers and some of the new safety codes. We talked about Barryfield scoreboard donation or potential donation. We talked about the tanks at Woonsocket High School, coral risers, the gymnasium scoreboards and shot clocks, and the potential replacement in the very near future. The Career and Tech Center tank removal, the purchase of a new bus, electric bus at Career Tech Center, the school committee's already approved. We talked about repairs in the culinary department, the Globe parking lot repair that was done at one of the parking spaces there that was brought to our attention. The issue we had with parking lot lights on election evening, emergency roof repairs at Citizens in Harris, and we talked about the upgrading of the security cameras here at this middle school, which is currently in progress.
I just want to add that the Barryfield visitor bleachers, I guess, are unsafe and they will be removed.
That is correct.
Right. So, and we're planning to remove them before Thanksgiving, I would assume, or trying to,
We will attempt to remove them before the
at least-
Thanksgiving game.
or
If
blocked
not,
off.
we will be most likely reaching out to the police department to station a detail there to let them know that the fans know that they can't be used and they'll have to bring chairs. And I'll reach out to Mr. Gio this week and make sure that Mrs. Giordano, our athletic director, notifies the opposing team that they will have to bring chairs of their own or sit in the bleachers and share them with our fans, which is something that other districts do.
And
They do
similar
share
with the
bleachers.
coral risers, they're unsafe.
They are,
And
yes.
so we need to replace them soon.
We need to replace those, and getting back to the bleachers, if you would go down to Lincoln High School, as my wife and I witnessed, there's only one set of bleachers for both visitors and home guests, so we may have to start cheering here in Woonsocket.
And with the fire marshals, I guess we're looking to grandfather or getting some variances on some of the issues that we're facing in terms of security and fire safety in some of our schools.
Yes, whatever we're not able to readily repair or immediately repair, or if there are things that are outdated based on the age of our buildings, we're going to look to do what we can, and if not, we'll apply for variances, correct?
And our next meeting is, I believe, January 11th, 2023. January 11th is what I have. Dr. McGee nods, yes.
So does Mr. Leclerc.
Yes, that would be correct.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Notoriani or myself? Make a motion to receive and place on file the facility security and safety update. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Leclerc. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next to last, Vice Chair Burke and Mrs. Costa to give us an update on the Health and Wellness Subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Health and Wellness Subcommittee met this recent Monday, November 14th, at room 124 in the Hamlet School. A meeting began at 4:05. I began the meeting by announcing to the members of the subcommittee that Ms. Costa and I were reelected to the Woonsocket School Committee so that we will be serving for another 2 years on the Health and Wellness Subcommittee. We then approved our minutes from September 19th, 2022. And we began our meeting by discussing a presentation from Ashley Plan from Sodexo. She is the Woonsocket Director of Sodexo. We first looked at how we're doing with the free and reduced lunch applications. And as of our meeting on Monday, she said that we have done 73.18% in terms of getting those applications in. There are still quite a few families out there that we want to try and get them to fill out these forms. As was mentioned at our last school committee meeting, our last health and wellness meeting, there is a toolkit sponsored by the Rhode Island Healthy School Coalition to help families fill out these forms because they can be daunting as well. She also talked about a backpack meal program that we have in the district. And right now we are providing 74 backpacks on Fridays to 74 families for the weekend. Bulk of them were from Globe School, if I remember correctly, as well as Portia Citizen also provides quite a few. So that's where we stand right now in terms of allowing these backpacks for the weekend to provide food needs to our families. We had a brief discussion about the lunch debt policy that we presently have in the district. And here we are in the beginning of November, and we are experiencing some lunch debt in the elementary schools. So we may have to find a way to look again at our policy or find a way to deal with that lunch debt, which is already present this early in the school year. So we had no solution, but we just brought that up as a discussion. Next, we had an update from Karen Weatherall from the Rhode Island Health and Schools Coalition. She reviewed the recent breakfast event that several of us attended. She also thanked our principal from Citizens Poitier, Kathy Carvello, and the students of the high school for the presentation that they made at the breakfast dealing with peer mentors. And that was also very, very good. She also talked about, at the same event, there was a presentation by the Recycling Club, because beginning January 1st, there is a new food waste law that's going into play, where food that's wasted must be compost. Is that the phrase they used? Beginning January 1st. So obviously Sodexo is looking at ways. There was a time when food waste would be donated to a local pig farmer, but he does not do that anymore. So we have to find a way to follow this law that begins January 1st. And the Recycling Club did offer some avenues where, teaching how to recycle certain elements of the food. So we'll see what happens in the future with that. Next on our agenda, we had Joanna Procopio from the University of Rhode Island, and she runs the University of Rhode Island SNAP Ed program. And this year, she is working with the fifth graders at Globe. It's a program that begins in November and goes to February. So she has just basically started with one meeting already with the fifth graders. And this is a similar program to what we did at Harris School last year. So the fifth graders, they'll discuss various recipes, they'll discuss favorite vegetables and fruits, and they'll work through, and by February, they will vote on, and the cafeteria will serve their favorite recipe for fruits and vegetables. Nice. So we'll see how that goes along continuously. A final presentation was from the Woonsocket Prevention Coalition, Cheryl DeCoste, and she talked about how the above the influence program continues at the high school, and also the Woonsocket Prevention Coalition has new digs now on Main Street, right next to Chan's, and in that office building there. And right now, there's a program that some high school kids are beginning to come in after school and hang out. We can also work to educate in terms of some preventions that would be important to them. So that's going on. And the meeting now adjourned at 5:15, and our next meeting will be January 23rd, 2023.
Thank you, Vice Chair Burke. Any comments, questions for him?
I just wanted to add to, with the free and reduced lunch apps, on that website, it's offered also in multiple different languages as well. So if they need it in other languages, it's available on that website as well.
It's great.
And Sodexo also reaches out to families that we believe would qualify to try and get them to complete the application. And again, there's going to be discussion back in the General Assembly on going back to free lunch, as we did for the last 2 years during COVID. So that discussion is continuing within the state. And obviously, our need for the free and reduced lunch applications ties into our Title I money. So that's also something that they have to clarify if they're going to make any changes. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else? I'll make a motion to receive and place on file the health and wellness update. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Next, I'll ask Mr. Notoriani to give us the facilities technology update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So before you have the Consolidated Technology Facilities update, presently, we do not have a facility or technology department secretary, so support is being provided by secretaries from other departments. Brad's and Dr. Holt's. Under technology, we presently have 70 work orders in the system. The technology department is working very hard to keep up with the work orders, along with working on the new Chromebooks that you graciously approved purchasing, I think it was a couple of meetings ago. The technology department data staff are presently working on the Panorama application, frontline evaluation system, the PCG Easy IEP system. We've started our discussions about digitizing our records, Lexia, TeachPoint, and the privacy agreement database. The facilities department is operating with 3 vacancies for custodial positions. We're currently relying on contractors for electrical, plumbing, and HVAC services. We do have several applicants, and we hope to have interviews scheduled for next week. As of today, there are 268 work orders in the system. There's an extreme backlog due to the staffing shortages. Durham Transportation continues to perform as they always do, which is okay. They could be better. And under safety and security, we'll be meeting next week to work on a plan to distribute the new radios as they come in. The committee may recall that we purchased additional radios for all of our school buildings. They are high-powered radios that work or should work throughout all of our buildings due to some of the concrete and nature of the construction. So next week, we'll be working on a plan to start dispersing them as they arrive here in the district. And that concludes my update for this evening.
Any questions for our director?
Mr. Chairman, I just remember since Mr. Notarani mentioned the Durham School Services, haven't we tabled an item dealing with them? And it's supposed to be a timely fashion when we bring it back?
Yeah.
I don't-
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, we have tabled an item, and it was in regards to, if you recall, Durham looking for some additional funding due to increases in pretty much every operational aspect across the board. We were actually planning on bringing that back to the school committee at the upcoming meeting in December to further have a discussion about how we should proceed. But yes, you are correct.
I think we just didn't have the information at the last meeting, and we mentioned it.
No.
Well,
We're waiting for
we were
improvement.
going to evaluate how the start of the year went. That's how the school committee left it off. There wasn't a decision made. We were going to evaluate how Durham performed, and I think we'll have a little more information for you at the next meeting about Durham's performance.
I raised the question because I thought there was a procedure involved in a tabled item.
Typically, tables come back into
a
the
time limit?
following meeting.
I don't believe it was tabled. I believe it was just told, we didn't table the item, that we just said there was going to be no action on it. And when we moved a little further into the school year, we would bring it back up for discussion.
That's fine.
Yeah, because wasn't the item taken off the
Was it taken
agenda?
off?
Yes, it was never kept on the agenda.
Tabled twice, okay.
Excuse me, I leave it off the agenda for a couple more months, and let's see how they're doing in a couple of months. That would be my recommendation. But if you'd like to put it on the agenda and have a discussion, I'd be more than
I would-
happy to discuss, but
I would
I think my update earlier, if you really think about what I said, they're doing okay.
I would
Just
defer to the chief operational officer on that.
Then we'll
Kinda have
get
to
your
agree with
update when you're ready to give it to us, because I'd rather have good data and knowing exactly where they stand. So if you think December's too early, we'll catch you in the new year.
Happy New Year to that.
I agree.
Fine with me. Then I'll make a motion to receive and place on file. I think we haven't done, and place on file the facility technology update. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa and Mr. Leclerc. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have one item in unfinished business. This item was tabled. So I'll make a motion to remove the item, which is a discussion approval, bid 23-06 community solar, off to bring it back to get it off the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Leclerc. Dr. McGee, roll call.
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke.
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
So now I'll make a motion to discuss and approve bid 2306 Community Solar.
Second.
Mr. Perrier?
Mr. Chairman, I would actually recommend to the school committee that we keep this on the table for one more meeting. We're still working through some legal back and forth between the contract. We're not ready to move forward with this yet, but I'm confident that we'll be ready to move forward this at the next meeting.
Are you sure? I mean,
Yeah, I'm like
we had it on, we
90.
took it off, we're bringing it back. You want to do it next meeting, or do
Yeah, next meeting.
Make a motion to table till the next meeting.
we have a second?
Second.
Second, a motion made by Mr. Leclerc, seconded by Mrs. Costa to table this item. Dr. McGee, roll call.
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke.
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Next, we go into new business. I'll make a motion to discuss and approve the out-of-school instruction for temporarily disabled students for first passage. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. Do we have any additional discussion on this? Or any discussion?
I don't have anything that I feel I need to add, other than what I've already given you in my report from the policy subcommittee. I know that, there was some concern expressed about, virtual learning,
Yes.
and the lion's share of this is intended to provide, tutoring, not virtual tutoring, but tutoring. And it requires at least, a minimum number of hours be through a teacher, not virtually, through an alternate setting, not in the school, not necessarily in the home, but an acceptable site somewhere in between, but it still does provide for that. And I just want to make sure that everyone understands that although it may seem that the hours seem small, most of those times it's dictated by a child's medical condition. In other words, a physician has said the child can handle 2 hours of school a day. That's it. That's what we provide. So it's guided by medical professionals in conjunction with the school. So that's where the limitations come from.
Thank you very much, because that was one of my questions on that policy.
And I think we also improved the language of providing the tutoring to certain individuals.
Yes.
I think that worked.
Any other comments? Mrs. Costa, you look like you're deep in thought.
No, I was just
Okay.
thinking.
Dr. McGee?
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke.
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Next, I'll make a motion to discuss and approve the medical marijuana administration policy for first passage. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Leclerc. Mrs. Kepiscus. The one thing after reading this policy, and you said it in your report, it doesn't address issues with students that are over 18. And it seems to me they should go back to the committee and include some of that language, because I guess that language was in earlier drafts,
Mhm.
and I think it belongs there.
It just addressed the concern is the policy, which comes from the Rhode Island Department of Education and Rhode Island Department of Health out of the Slater Act. It's basically a proposed policy that we're supposed to adopt. It doesn't address the issue of how students who are over the age of 18 are going to have the medical marijuana that they have a permit for brought to school for purposes of administration. It states in the policy that any student is supposed to have the medical marijuana brought to school at the time of administration, brought to either the main office or the nurse's office, administered by either the nurse if the nurse is agreeable. If the nurse is opted out, the nurse doesn't do it. And then it would be a parent, guardian, or a designee from the parent or guardian who cannot be an employee of the Woonsocket School Department, would administer the medication. Herein lies the problem with students who are over the age of 18. A student over the age of 18 is an adult and can say, I don't need my mommy to bring it to me. I will bring my own marijuana. And we're talking about tincture and edibles. We are not talking about marijuana that is smoked in any way. That is still
vaped.
prohibited by state law. So that's the concern, is we haven't really addressed the issue with regard to the 18-year-olds. It's clear the law does not allow them to carry it on the premises, at the beginning of the school day. And we certainly don't want students leaving the premises to get their medical marijuana at home, coming home and coming back to school and administering the medical marijuana. Just do it while you're home. But there is no way for that medical marijuana to get there, because the only way it can be transported is parent, guardian, or parent's representative. And an 18-year-old is an adult. And a parent no longer has that authority over them any longer. And the problem is, how are we going to address that? And you say, is this really an issue? It may be an issue. We don't know. My research, and this is my research and the various different ways this policy has been reviewed, and review of other policies and review of state law. This is all of it. It's pretty thick. There are approximately 20 students statewide, K through 12 ages, who have medical marijuana permits. However, there are 154 students in the age 18 and 19 range who have medical marijuana permits. And that's where my concern lies. That's setting aside the issue of the nurses who have already pretty much made it very clear they will en masse refuse to participate. And as long as they refuse, if a nurse refuses to administer medical marijuana to one student, they must refuse to administer it to any student. And it is my understanding that all of them will be saying they will not administer it to any student. So it will be a parent or guardian or designee bringing it in to begin with. So we're back to the 18-year-old issue. It's not like they can bring it in and leave it in the nurse's office in a lockbox. That's one of the concerns. I'm trying to think of the other concerns that we had. Oh, Dr. Crotty, the physician for the school department, she says we shouldn't be administering it to any student. Well, as far as I appreciate her opinion, she was my child's pediatrician too. But the problem is, RIDO and RIDE say we have to have a policy because it's permitted under the Slater Act. So we still have to develop a policy. I just want you all to be aware that only 4 districts have a policy. And none of them address the 18-year-old issue, not really. And none of the other districts have adopted a policy yet. So you say, well, let's sit back and wait. We could do that, but we don't know what RIDE's position is going to be for districts that are non-compliant, districts that do not have a policy. The threat is always to beat you over the head by refusing to give you your funding. If you're not in compliance with their rules and regulations, they could deny you your access to your funding. So it's never been anything that the subcommittee has agreed on fully. This is nothing unanimous coming out of the policy subcommittee on this particular policy.
Right.
The same philosophical differences continue to exist as have always existed since we started discussing this in May. We discussed it in May, we discussed it in June, we discussed it in August, September, and October. In October, we did take a vote to put it on the agenda here for November, and it was passed, but over objection. People did object. People said no. If you have any questions, I can answer them, or Mr. Burke and I can try to answer
Were
them.
the objections at the subcommittee level because of the 18 and older? Or what was the other objections?
The objections were over the 18 and older from the participants from the high school level. And from the elementary school level, because they're looking ahead and saying, it just sets up a problem in the high school. There's already a drug problem in every high school. Now we're simply inviting the drugs in. But as we've tried to explain, Caroline and I have tried to explain, it doesn't really make any difference. We have to have a policy. It's permitted under state law, whether we like it or not. All we can do is try to restrain it as much as we possibly can. The nurses are not going to cooperate in our efforts to keep it in a lockbox in their office. It's just not going to happen at this point.
So if we have a student that's 18 or older and has the license, right? And he or she has to have it brought in. Where is it brought in? Is it brought into the admin office where it will be given to the student? How do you envision this works? So how is this going to work? If we're going to have any policy tonight, we've got to at least think something through here.
As of right now, the way this policy is drafted, across the board, any student, no matter what their age, and we have students up to age 22 at the high school.
Right.
Because we have transition students, that marijuana must be brought in by a parent, guardian, or parent's designee at the time of administration, it is either brought to the nurse's office or the main school building, the main office in the building, preferably the nurse's office, where it is administered to that student, no matter what their age is, by that parent, guardian, or designee. And then any remains are left, they leave the building with that person. So in other words, if you're bringing them an edible, you're bringing them the edible they need for that administration, and you are leaving with the wrapper it came in. That is the way it works right now across the board. My concern with that is, as an attorney, I can see an 18-year-old saying, you can't tell me I have to have my mommy bring it to me. And that's where I can envision a problem. The flaw is not in the policy that we have. The flaw is in the regulations. The flaw is in the policy as it comes from RIDE and RIDO. We're stuck with it. I really wish we had gotten more guidance from RIDE or RIDO on this issue. I don't know, maybe they think it's a non-issue. If so, they haven't walked into a high school anytime in the recent past, because every high school has students over the age of 18 at this point. Students can't quit school till they're 18. So we all have students who are over the age of 18. And it's just not addressed from the state guidance. It's just not addressed. But as of right now, that's the way it is. So what are we going to do when that 18-year-old says, you can't tell me I have to have my mommy bring it to me? Yeah, our policy says we can tell you, you have to have your mommy bring it to you.
So we would have to deal with that on that particular case.
If an adult raises it, an 18-year-old or above student is an adult. If they raise it, we're going to have to deal with it then. We may have a student raise it, or we may have the ACLU raise it, one way or the other.
Caroline, what do you think? There we go.
At our last policy subcommittee meeting, we discussed this issue for probably the third or fourth time, this 18-year-old issue. The policy as it's before you today does bear on that issue in a couple ways. One, it requires that if medical marijuana isn't being administered by the school nurse, it has to be brought in by a parent, parent's designee, or legal guardian for the sole purpose of administration, and then brought off the campus. The policy also states in a number of other places that under no circumstances can that medical marijuana remain on the campus. So practically speaking, that does mean that any student who's going to be receiving medical marijuana, assuming that all the nurses are uniformly going to refuse to administer it, the department is going to have to arrange with those students to have someone come into the building to administer it. The regulations prohibit students from self-administering medical marijuana. There's no distinction between a student who's over or under the age of 18. So that also impacts that. And I think those two aspects of the regulation of the policy are consistent with one another, that, you know, if you're a student, you can't have it on the campus, and you can't self-administer it on the campus, regardless of how old you are. We tried to deal with the issue of the 18-year-olds by incorporating language that essentially says, even if you're over the age of 18, you're going to have to arrange for someone else to come to administer the medical marijuana. That could be a parent, it could be someone else, but it has to be someone over the age of 18 and someone who brings the medical marijuana in and then brings it back out. After so much discussion of it, my memory of our last meeting is that we opted ultimately to take out the language that specifically tried to address what we're calling the 18-year-old issue, so that the policy was a little bit more bare bones, just in line with what the regulations require, with the understanding that if an 18-year-old student does require the administration of medical marijuana in school, that we'll have to deal with that at a case-by-case basis type of way, potentially by way of procedure or protocol, below the policy level. Because I think after so much discussion, we ultimately, and correct me if I'm misremembering this, but we ultimately decided that this wasn't something that we wanted. As Lynn said, it's an issue with the regulations and the way that they're drafted, and it wasn't something that we wanted to take upon ourselves to try and draft around. So we didn't want to risk infringing on the rights of 18-year-olds who are adults legally.
But let me, so we have an 18-year-old student gonna get marijuana. He's not gonna have his mummy bring it, but he's gotta have somebody bring it.
Somebody over the age of 18.
Okay, so once they come in, probably gonna have to go to the admin office. You're
Or
gonna.
the school nurse's office.
Area.
Mhm.
You're gonna give her the gummy or whatever it is, gonna take the wrapper and leaves off campus.
Right.
Student has consumed that product and goes back to his class, his or her class.
They first have to sit in the nurse's office for 5 minutes to be
Right,
observed.
but ultimately goes back to school.
Right.
Then we've handled it. Seems to me it's somewhat handled.
It's handled, I think Carol and I would agree that it's handled as much as we can handle it.
Okay?
I don't think that we have tried since May to draft language that addresses this issue without stepping on the regs, and we just can't. Because it's a conundrum within the statute, it's within the reg itself. It's a requirement that it come in, be consumed immediately, and depart. And that's the problem with the 18-year-old, because they're an adult. They don't legally have a parent who's responsible to do that
But
anymore.
maybe it's not a parent. Maybe it's someone.
Well, our concern is its best friend, Jimmy, who graduated last year.
So
And we're hoping Jimmy's only bringing in the one edible.
well, I guess that's what has to be looked at closely. Whoever is going to observe the distribution of that medicine to that student.
Right.
That's what has to happen. And I guess that'd be more protocol, whether it's an assistant principal that's going to watch this, or because the nurse isn't going to be involved.
I think the plan is that the nurse would be observing, because I don't know that the assistant principal would know what they're watching for. The nurses, I don't think, are opposed to observing. They're opposed to administering.
Right. Okay. So it seems to me as best we have it, this is about the best we're going to get anyway.
I agree, which is why we took a vote to move it forward, because I don't think we're going to get it any better than this at this point.
Okay.
Without further guidance. And this way we're in compliance. So we're not risking RIDE saying you don't get your funding this year because you didn't adopt this policy. Though I don't see them doing that because too many districts don't have it.
35 districts out, you're not going to stop, especially all the big districts. I mean, Providence is one of those that
Well,
doesn't have a policy.
Providence still doesn't have a bullying policy if you look on their website.
So
So,
in
I
terms
mean,
of killing.
they're in
funding,
disarray. I think this is the best that we can do. And I think that it's better to have something in place than nothing in place.
it seems to me that we are at least addressing the 18 and older. I don't care if you're 18 or old, you're a student of that school.
Right.
So you have to have it brought in and the person has to leave.
And the regs are clear. That's the process.
Then I think we've got it. Vice Chair Burke, you seem like you had something
No, I was going to
add.
say, I mean, the policy as is okay. Caroline did mention that we could put in procedures as needed, you know. if
Protocol.
a Situation comes in, there could be procedures added that are not part of the policy. So,
Any thoughts on this side? Dr. McGee?
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke,
yes,
Mrs. Kepiscus,
Reluctantly, yes.
Mrs. Costa,
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
yes.
Next, I'll make a motion to approve, to rescind and retire certain sections of the old policy manual. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Costa. Any thoughts on this? All these sections are all covered by new policies.
They're either supplanted by new policies or they're just not relevant anymore.
Dr. McGee?
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke,
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus,
Yes.
Mrs. Costa,
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Fourth item, is this something that, Dr. McGee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would respectfully ask the committee to table new business item number 4 as I spoke with Attorney Tebow the other day, and we are in the process of finalizing this MOU with the
Okay.
Nonviolence Institute. So we will have it ready for the next meeting.
I'll make a
the
motion.
only meeting in
Make a
December.
motion to table.
Second.
Second, Mr. Leclerc. Dr. McGee?
Chairman Bourget,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burke,
Yes.
Mrs. Kepiscus,
Yes.
Mrs. Costa,
Yes.
Mr. Leclerc.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there are no other items on our agenda.
Unfortunately.
So I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:07. Is there a
Second.
second by Mrs. Costa and Mr. Leclerc? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Adjourned.